Okay, for this video, we'll be solving a dynamics question for 2 or 3 bodies that are actually being acted upon by a force. Okay, so the way of solving is always the same. So the first step is that you have to find the thing that is common between them. So now, if I have 3 things that are being tied together, okay, and that they are being pulled by a single force, in this case it is a 30 Newton, right? So what is the thing that will be the same as them? Definitely not the mass, because P is 1 kg, Q is 2 kg, and R is 3 kg. Okay, so if we look at this formula, F net equals to MA. Alright, so since their mass is different for this case, right? Therefore, we have 2 more physics quantity that is left. So which one do you think will be the same among the 3? Okay, so if you have ever been in a train, right, and the train has many different carriages. Now each train will have different number of passengers, and therefore each train will have different mass, right? This is quite common. It's literally quite impossible to have each carriage to be of the same mass, right? But because the train is linked as one whole body, right, all the carriages are linked together, therefore the acceleration must be the same for each of this body. Acceleration is the same for each body because they are all connected, right? So they must have the same acceleration. Okay, so we will always try to find the acceleration of each body, each object, or the acceleration for the entire object is going to be the same. Okay, so if the acceleration is not given, then we have to find this acceleration. In this case, the question did not give us the acceleration, right? And so the key here is to group all the objects together, because if I'm pulling with 30 newtons, I do not care whether P, Q, and R. I don't care about their mass. All I know is I'm actually pulling a total mass of 6 kg, right? So I can actually draw a free body diagram of this object that consists of P, Q, and R, and I'm pulling it with 30 newtons. So for syllabus, usually they don't tell us that there's any friction, right, involved. It is usually a smooth surface. So if it is a smooth surface, we can safely take it that there's no friction. Okay, for pure physics, maybe they will bring in friction. Then you have to solve using finding the F net. But in this case, because the surface is smooth and there is no other horizontal forces, therefore I can say that this 30 Newton is actually the F net. So if I apply the formula, F net equals to MA. F net is 30, the mass is 6, the acceleration will then be 5 meter per second square. Okay, which means to say P, Q, and R, they will be moving with an acceleration of 5 meter per second square. Now what's the next step? We break up the body into the number of objects that are present. So in this case, there are 3 objects. So I need to draw the free body diagram for all 3 objects. Okay, and what is free body diagram? It is the diagram that shows the forces acting on each body. Okay, and it is not necessary to put the force by each body. It is acting on the body. So I'll be drawing for P. So for P, it is being pulled by T1. There are no other forces acting on P. Okay, and I take note that the acceleration is 5 meter per second square. The mass is 1 kg. So I'll draw the free body diagram for Q. For Q is slightly more complicated because it is being pulled by T2. But because Q is also linked to P, that means Q is going to be pulling P, right? So P is going to exert an equal but opposite force called T1, okay, on Q. This is the force of P on Q, and it is actually equal in magnitude to T1. So the mass of Q is 2 kg, and Q is also moving with an acceleration of 5 meters per second square. Now we go to the last one, which is R. So it is being pulled by 30 newtons directly, but there is also a pulling force of T2 on R. This is due to Q pulling on R. And R is moving with an acceleration of 5 meters per second square, and it is 3 kg. Okay, so this is the free body diagram for all the three objects. Okay, if you are unsure why the free body diagram is drawn for the objects like this, please ask me. Okay, just recall that free body diagram is showing all the forces acting on the body. Okay, so now I'm going to solve for P. Why? Because P, there's only one force. Okay, I know the acceleration, I know the mass, so with this I can calculate F net equals to ma. So equals to 1 multiplied by 5, so F net is going to be 5 Newton for P. And since T1 is the only force, horizontal force acting on P, therefore T1 will have a magnitude of 5N. Okay? How about this T1 that is on Q? It will then be equal to 5 Newton as well. Okay? But because there's now a force of T2, so I actually need to work out what is the F net, because now there are two forces, T1 and T2, pulling Q in opposite direction. So because I have the acceleration and I have the mass, I calculate my F net equals to ma. My F net is going to be 2 multiplied by 5, so it's going to be 10 Newton. Okay, so my F net for Q, remember how do we represent F net? We draw a double arrow not touching the object, okay, and we put the magnitude there. So if the F net is 10 Newton, T1 is 5 Newton, how much does T2 need to be so that the F net is 10 Newton? So we can take T2 minus T1 equals to 10 Newton. So T2 will then be 10 plus 5 equals to 15 Newton. Okay, so you can put in and try. If T2 is really 15 Newton and T1 is 5 Newton, what will the resultant force be? It will be 10 Newton to the right. Okay, so actually I solve for T1, which is 5 Newton. I solve for T2, which is 15 Newton. Now let us use R to test. Okay, if our T2 is really the correct answer of 15 Newton, therefore by working out the resultant force, I can actually verify that the acceleration is 5. So I'm not going to be using this. I'm going to be using T2, which is 15 Newton, and I'm going to use the pulling force of 30 Newton to see that the acceleration is indeed 5 meters per second square. So F net, we take the larger force, 30 minus 15, so I get 15 Newton. And F net is also equals to ma. So 15, and the mass is 3. What is the acceleration? If we do the calculation, it will be 5 meters per second square, which then tallies with what we have done. Okay, so yeah.